in Dark Heresy. Real quick, I realized when I talked about chaos a couple videos ago, I didn't mention the inquisitional arm that goes with chaos, which is the Ordos Malus. And they're largely concerned with things like warp incursions and demons and demon hosts and things like that. So that's fairly straightforward. They have a chamber militant, much like the Death Watch. It is a chapter of Space Marines known as the Grey Knights. And the Grey Knights are unusual in that all Grey Knights are psychers and have psychic abilities which help them defend themselves against the psyker attacks of things like demons. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on that briefly and then move on to the actual subject matter here, which is, of course, heresy in Dark Heresy. The term heresy applied in 40K can cover a lot of ground because of the tight melding between the church and the government is very it's very much bound together. So technically a lot of things that might in other societies be considered being a traitor politically is actually technically also can be an affront against the God Emperor. In the Inquisition, you have the Ordos Hereticus, also known as the Witch Hunters, who are the inquisitional arm that's mostly interested in heresy. And they mostly concern themselves with things that are more towards the religious end of things as opposed to things like you didn't pay your taxes, you hate the God Emperor kind of a thing. Though technically all that could fall in their purview. The big things they tend to worry about are witches, which are unsanctioned psychers. They're, people with psychic abilities running around loose that haven't been through imperial conditioning and been, approved by the Astrotelepathica, the sort of psychic police who monitor and train psychers so that they know that they're quote-unquote relatively safe. And then also they deal with, of course, things like any kind of heretical cults. This can include, of course, the obvious things like the chaos worshippers, as well as people who have, just basically deviated from the true faith of the God Emperor. This also covers, to a certain degree, mutants, where they do like to keep an eye on. They're the ones who probably pay the most attention to mutants and possible mutant issues, which we talked about in the chaos section. And then the final area, which is their major focus, is apostasy, where you're dealing with things like rogue priests or things like that, where there's a situation where a deviation from the scriptures, so to speak, a deviation from the true faith, a deviation from the proper performance of religious duties and worship and so forth, which can, again, cover a lot of ground. So it gives them an awful lot of power. They are, in many ways, one of the most powerful arms of the Inquisition because of the fact that there's very little that can't theoretically fall under their purview. They also have a chamber militant. The chamber militant of the Ordos Hereticus, unlike the other two main arms, are not Space Marines. They're a special militant arm, which I find very interesting. They're the Sisters of Battle, known as the Adeptus Sororitas. They came into being a long time ago, thousands of years ago, under basically a loophole, where because of certain things that happened during, there was an age of apostasy where there was a whole big religious schism, and I'm not going to get into all that, but suffice to say that after it was over, there was a lot of reforms done to try and prevent something like that from happening again. And one of the things that came up was that the church was allowed to have no men under arms. The idea that they couldn't have a standing church army. Well, the church found a loophole to that and said, well, no men under arms. It didn't say anything about women. So the Adeptus Sororitas was formed. They are a penitent organization, kind of like, I guess, battle nuns, though they're not really nuns. But they are very devout, very much militant. There are several branches of them, different focuses. The one that works with the Inquisition the most is going to be the militant part of that, the ones that are the actual, with faith and fire and kill the heretic kind of thing. They aren't space marines. They aren't like genetically modified super soldiers. They are human beings. They're recruited from various places, often orphanages and things like that. They are very dangerous. They are probably some of the most dangerous troops that are just human troops. They have things like power armor, which isn't quite up to the Space Marine power armor level, but is still very well equipped. You know, they have their own ships, their own leadership and hierarchy and chain of command. They have their own resources, and they work very closely with the Ordos Hereticus in the Inquisition. At least some of them do. There's also a hospitaller branch, which is, you know, sort of a Florence Nightingale, heal the sick kind of thing. And then there's also a sort of diplomatic arm that works with planetary governments and things like that in political and diplomatic negotiations and things. And they have all three of them work together to kind of like promote the worship of the God Emperor, to serve the God Emperor. They're kind of like paladins. So while they are very useful to potentially to a cell of acolytes who's trying to, you know, work for their inquisitor, and if they need some, you know, firepower to back them up, if they have the ability to call on the Sisters of Battle, that's going to help them a lot. They can be the sisters can be a fairly rigid bunch to be around. They are not at all, as a rule, very flexible in their thinking. So anyway, that's a Sister of Battles. That is the Ordos Hereticus. Next time, I think we're going to start wrapping this up. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the nature of the game, Dark Heresy, moving out of the SETI a little bit, and the way the game works and the kinds of things that you would do while playing Dark Heresy, the types of challenges and adventures and things that you might encounter. So, that's it for now. See you next time.